All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum according to Chad and staff. Let's see, approval of the agenda.
Brent Clark, so moved.
Mr. Chair, we'd appreciate it if we could get the members to type in their motions and seconds into the chat box, as well as their votes.
Okay, type in the motion and the second. Did we get that yet? Sandy seconded. All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Approval of the minutes of May 12th. Any corrections? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Oh, I will make the motion.
And
Brent Clark will second.
Okay, there we go. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, Dan. All right, director's report. Motion carried. Director's report.
Thank
Chad,
you.
you're up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Nice. Okay, the slides are here. This is to report to you our status, how far we are on MTP. Today is a great day that MTP is coming to the conclusion and seeking your adoption today. Just a quick update on just the highlights on what went on in the past in the update of this MTP. So let me see the next slide for a second. Kristen, the next slide, Kristen. Kristen, is the next slide coming up?
Hang on, I'm trying to advance it.
Okay, sorry about that. So this cycle was June 2020, and the next cycle of MTP update is June 2025. Although we had some room to adapt a month or so, we did have time, but I'm really appreciative of the WAMPO staff, the teamwork that the WAMPO staff put together, working with HDR consulting firm in getting this report completed. So I'm pleased to report to you, Chairman and the board, that although COVID situation had many slowdown, the WAMPO staff was busy coordinating in the completion of this report. So I'm really pleased to report to you that. So the next slide, please, Kristen. So basically what went on into this report, it's a coordination between 22 cities in 3 counties in the entire region. And you may have seen the report. The main report had several technical reports in the appendices as well. So if you had time to review, you can see the transportation system for the Wichita area region, the WAMPO area, had wealth of information in this. And we are continuously working to improve how we can document the transportation system and system performance and the various modes of transportation. So you can see on the right side, there are 15 appendices. And please review those, and then we are looking to seek your feedback, how best we can improve for the next time. And we also want to, commend your leadership in coordination of the transportation projects within the region. So next slide, please, Kristen. So this slide summarizes the high level what we had been doing. For those of you who are new to WAMPO, what WAMPO does is WAMPO's management of federal funds for the transportation system. This board's leadership is helpful for all of us, for WAMPO staff and the communities, on management of federal funds for the transportation system. Also, the coordination between agencies, cities, counties, Department of Transportation, and Federal Highway Administration. Investment in federal dollars, how they're invested, and the decision-making process. Because of the complexity, the coordination between various agencies, what goes on at WAMPO, and this TPB leadership is also commended for making that happen. And finally, the transportation system. We all together had developed regional transportation priorities, and we also have documented transportation system and system performance in our MTP report as well. So next slide, please, Kristen. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, the next cycle will be June 2025, and then we are seeking your feedback, how we can continue to do what had been the best, and how we can continuously improve to make it even better next time. So there will be a survey that staff will be sending out soon to you. Just want to keep you in the loop. And there are, next slide, please, Kristen. And there are also opportunities to provide the feedback by being on the committee. So there are some upcoming committees that will be formed between now and fall season. There's freight committee that's already progressing at the moment, but you're welcome to join that committee as well. So there will be safety and health committee for the region, regional bike ped trails committee that looks into how the trails are connected from one end to the other regionally. And also later on, we'll be looking at transportation infrastructure to see how the infrastructure conditions are, to monitor the infrastructure condition and the transportation system. So these are all upcoming to keep you reported what's happening. So next slide, please, Kristen. So the next item is on transportation improvement program. So next slide, please. As you all know, this was progressing along with MTP. There were a lot of coordination between cities and Department of Transportation and then Federal Highway Administration. Both MTP and TIP, it needs perspective not only from the local to make the system the best, but also from the statewide perspective. How best is the region aligned with the statewide goals as well. And FHWA provided their perspective in how best the system performs from the perspective of nation. So in all, the coordination of both TIP and MTP had now come to a great conclusion for the board to take action today. So next slide, please, Kristen. So now, same way, just like the MTP is due in the next 5 years, TIP is also due again in a couple of years, like June 2022, the fall, between June and fall. That would be the years 23, 24, 25, and 26. The current TIP, which will be up for adoption, is for the years 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Obviously, these you all know is a 4-year transportation improvement program that has funding commitments. Again, for this process also, we want to continue to do what had been the best, and we want to continue to improve the places where we can to make it even better. Next slide, please, Kristen. That's all, Mr. Chair, and there is ABVP webinars are just an informational item. So thank you. Consent agenda.
Any questions for Chad? Okay. All right. What next, sir? Okay, do we need the consent agenda? Are there any questions on this? Or I'd entertain a motion, excuse me, to approve the consent agenda. David moved to approve. Troy seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay. Let's see. Public comment. Anybody on here that would like to address the board? If not, then we will move on to new business. Chris with the MTP Reimage Move 2040.
All right, let me get this swept over to my slides here.
Okay.
I think we're good. Hope everyone can see that. So I'm very excited that today we will finally be asking you to approve our new long-range metropolitan transportation plan, Reimagine Move 2040, as well as our 2021 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. This is the culmination of a 2-year effort, starting with public engagement, crafting a vision and outcomes, selecting projects, defining our major regional priorities, producing the final documents, taking review and comment from the public and from our partners, and then the final step is for you to adopt the plan. Now, we have been talking about this stuff for 2 years. We went over the core document at our last meeting, so I'm not going to go through all of this again in detail. However, I would like to thank all of those who contributed to this process, starting with WAMPO staff. This includes staff members who are no longer with us, like Gloria Jeff, who laid much of the groundwork before her departure, and Kathy Newby and Bethany Phelps, both of whom did a great job handling logistics. Phil Nelson and Chad provided great leadership throughout the process. Tricia Thomas did an excellent job on the public engagement, talking to many, many more people than we have in the past, and contributed vitally by coordinating the production of the final document. Kristen Zimmerman handled major sections of the MTP, including all of the financial analysis, as well as the TIP project selection process and the TIP itself. And while I'm very proud that this is a staff-led effort, we did receive great help from our various consultants, including HDR, Trans Systems, and PEC. I wanted to thank the Plan Advisory Committee, many of whom talked to multiple groups of the public as part of our public engagement, and all of whom provided excellent feedback to staff in the course of developing this plan. Speaking of the public engagement, I want to thank all of the stakeholders and members of the public who contributed to the development of the plan, including the vision and outcomes, providing input on candidate projects, and especially those who provided feedback on our draft documents. The members of the Project Selection Committee put in just a ton of time over many meetings, including listening to project sponsors, rating the projects on the selection criteria, and selecting the final slate of projects. The TAC provided a lot of feedback, and they really contributed to defining the major regional priorities. And finally, I want to thank all of you on the Transportation Policy Body for your efforts considering and approving the important milestones along the way, including the planning process itself, the vision and outcomes, the project selection process, and the final slate of projects, the major regional priorities, and now, of course, the plan itself. I really appreciate how engaged all of you have been throughout this process. You have put up with me going on about this for 2 whole years, and rest assured, I am finally done. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and then we can get on to actually approving this plan.
Okay. Good job. Anybody have any questions for Chris? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Reimaging Move 2040.
Brent Clark would make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
David Out, a second.
Okay, Cindy seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Chris, and everybody involved. Good job. Appreciate it. Next
you.
one is WAMPO Employee and Operation Manual. Kelly or Chad, who's going to run with this?
We have Scott in the place of Kelly today. Kelly could not come. So Scott, are you here?
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. My name is Scott Hill. I'm an attorney with Height, Fanning and Honeyman. I work with Kelly Rendell, who's WAMPO'S primary counsel, presented on this topic last month but was unable to join us today. So last month, Kelly presented on revisions to the operations manual. Today, we're going to focus again on some highlighted changes from the existing operations manual and address some additional changes that have been made in the last month to that document. And ultimately, at the end of this presentation, I think we're going to be asked to approve this manual. A lot of these changes have been developed with your feedback and WAMPO's team's feedback, so we appreciate those changes. At the outset, you'll notice that the title to the document is now changed to Employee and Operations Manual from the existing title of Operations Manual. That's because many of the things that we typically see in an employee handbook are included within this document. So that's from a high level that describes a lot of the changes. If you could advance the slide, please, Kristen. Some of the significant updates from the existing operations manual deal with classification of employees. The Fair Labor Standards Act requires that we distinguish between exempt and non-exempt employees. So changes have been made throughout the document to cover those topics, and they become important on things like overtime. And we're going to talk about compensatory time here in a moment, and that differentiation is necessary to allow for compensatory time. We've just simply incorporated those changes into the manual. We have included a provision for new hiring processes to include to take into account Kansas law related to veterans' preferences. That can be found on page 5 of the manual or 201 of your packet. We've included an initial probationary period of 180 days to address performance concerns, after which an employee can be terminated, the probationary period can be extended, or someone can graduate out of that probationary period. There's been some changes to the leave section, and we find those on page 11 of the manual. I think over the course of this last month, there's been some discussion that the leave provisions and benefits should not exceed what's allowed by Sedgwick County and City of Wichita. There's been some revision related to that. And Chad may have some further discussion now as it relates to that and maybe specifically carryover of that leave time.
Thank you, Scott. The limits when they can be carried over, whether it is this year or next year, the chairman will lead the discussion. Because of the COVID situation, potentially implementing this from 2022 January would be something that's in the thought process at the moment. Thank you, Scott.
All right, well, I'll continue on here. The updates include provision for a annual evaluation and performance improvement plans, just simply outlining the processes and the options there, as well as a discipline and grievance process. Again, just including that within the manual. Compensatory time, as I mentioned above, has been included. This describes how an employee would go about requesting compensatory time, taking time off as opposed to payment for overtime. This is generally a cost savings measure that we try to incorporate. You can find that at page 9. Alternative work schedules are now provided for, as well as military leave benefits. I know there was a discussion last month, or I believe there was a discussion last month on health insurance and whether someone in the military would have the rights to continued health care or health insurance. The answer is yes, but likely they would not take that benefit because of the military offered health care. We can go ahead and advance to the next slide. I think there is one typo, and we're about at the point where I think we should address that. On page 40 of the manual, there is one typo, and if we approve this today, it should be approved with that change. In the third paragraph, there's a reference to a MORPC, M-O-R-P-C, where it should refer to WAMPO. So that change should definitely be incorporated in any sort of approval. There's a new ethics and conflict of interest section within the manual. You can find this on page 21 to 24. Includes a confidentiality provision, simply indicating that certain information deemed confidential should only be distributed on a need-to-know basis. There's a nepotism policy that's been included, and a procedure for seeking part-time second job work on how an employee would go about doing that. There's a code of ethics that is provided for that relates only to WAMPO employees, that addresses things like gifts, lobbying, meals, entertainment, sporting events, those sorts of things. That can be found at the appendix, and it's at page 249 of the packet. And in the packet, also in the appendix, is a statement of substantial interest. Anytime that there is a potential conflict, this is the form that would be completed to identify that to staff. Next slide, please. A social media policy has been added, I believe, since the last meeting. This begins on page 32 of the manual itself. And we're going to differentiate between two things here. This is WAMPO-owned social media sites. This clarifies that those are in fact owned by WAMPO. It clarifies who should be posting on behalf of WAMPO. It refers to necessary permissions and reminds everyone to be professional and respectful as it relates to any social media. As it relates to employee-owned social media, this clarifies that employees should clarify that they're not speaking on behalf of the organization. They should not disclose confidential information. They shouldn't use that as the forum to respond to questions that should be addressed by the organization itself. And there is a disclaimer if they're simply going to talk about WAMPO activities. There's a question of whether or not an employee can be prohibited from talking about their employment on social media, and the answer to that is no. But the employee handbook otherwise governs, so they have ethical responsibilities. They can't harass, they can't bully. Those things still apply. Next slide, please. A few other things that we've addressed in these changes. Like, again, the title has been changed. There is a reference on page 2 of the manual to WAMPO's commitment to engage those with disabilities in limited English in our processes. There's changes to the procurement section on page 28 to 29. One of those from a highlight levels, routine purchases of office supplies can be made without bids, with certain conditions. And we removed a section dealing with the manual being confidential. It's a public document, so the manual itself is not confidential. That's all the high level items that I have for review. Next slide. I think we're ready for questions or some action.
Okay, any questions?
Donna Klassen, Mayor of Mays. I'm just wondering, I know the comp is, as they said, is, the Fair Labor Act, but I do not see anything in it where it says it needs to be approved by the director. And I am not a fan of comp time. Every place that I've joined or become a part of a team, comp time was abused and was not used properly. I did talk to Kelly about it, and she said that she would talk to the executive committee about it. And most of you have looked at it. Overall, it's really a long personnel manual, but it's well written. But comp time, if the director doesn't approve it, then it shouldn't happen, because it is misused. And I noticed that Scott said something about cost savings. Well, it could be cost savings, but if it's abused, it's not cost savings. So my thing is even though it's in this book, we still should have something that it cannot be had unless, I'll say, the director approves it, because, and I understand there's only, at this time, there's 2 employees that could use comp time, but again, it has been abused and misused by most entities, and it's just not a good idea to have. But again, we have to have it. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Does anybody object to adding that the director must approve the comp time?
No, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good plan. So if we can add that into that section, please, with the approval of the director of WAMPO. Okay, any other changes or comments?
I have a question, and I was one of them that was talking about the extension of the employee benefits, whether it be 21 or into 22 January. We're looking at, is that vacation? Or is that vacation and sick leave? What are we looking at allowing them to hold and use before January of 22?
Only the vacation and sick leave carry over from 1 year to the next.
I just wanted to clarify that because you and I talked about that, Chad, and I just couldn't remember if it was both or just one.
I think vacation is sufficient. I think vacation carryover from one to the next is.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
If there aren't any other questions, I'd make a motion, Dan, that we approve this with the with the changes.
Okay. We have a motion.
And I'll
Go ahead.
second it. This is Donna Classen, and I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the amended employee and operation manual. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposition?
Aye.
Okay, then motion carried.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all. Next one is Families First Response Act. Who wants, Chad, is that you, or it has Kelly, but is
Scott is filling
Scott
in.
going to take care of that one too? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so the next section here deals with the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. And again, this was introduced last month to reflect legislation that's been passed this year that's currently effective from April 1 to December 31st, 2020. I don't believe any changes have been made to this standalone policy since the last meeting. There is a provision in here that if Congress were to extend this act, that the policy would continue for the duration of that extension. I think Kelly described last month that this requires paid family medical leave under certain circumstances and paid sick leave under a different set of circumstances, all of which we would have to probably apply on a case-by-case basis because the number of possibilities is numerous. We're certainly able to handle any of those questions as they come up, or staff can as well. Next slide, I think we're simply looking for some action on approving the policy here today.
Okay, any comments or changes proposed? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, we'd appreciate the motion and the second, and the votes being written in the chat box.
Okay. Can I get somebody in the chat box to make a motion and a second, please? Okay, we got a second by Tom. Did you get that one, Kristen?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye, or put in the chat box.
Aye.
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 There we go. All right, thank you all. Next one, we did not have the executive committee did not meet last month. We'll plan on meeting this month just to go over a few things. And then report back next month. Troy, do you have anything from TAC?
Yeah, we did discuss doing a full review of the process that we went through this time for the tip, and seeing what went well, what didn't, what we can improve for the next time we go through the process. So I think that's an excellent thing to do at any time that you have a process like this, to review it. So we're going to do that. That's all I got from TAC, though.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Mike, do you have anything? Moriarty or Richard? Does anybody?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
hey, I'm sorry. I was getting off mute. Yeah, it's Mike from KDOT. I don't know if Richard's on the phone today or not. We are continuing to monitor the conversations in DC about both reauthorization and any additional stimulus maybe for infrastructure. So we're keeping our eyes peeled on those two topics. I am going to send out a link to a website that provides information on the projects that were recently selected for the project development pipeline under the new Eisenhower Transportation Program. So Chad, I'll work with your staff and we'll get that link sent out this week with all the information, all the current information on the new IKE program.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mike. Anything else? Tom, I kind of skipped over you, apologize. Do you have anything?
I don't have anything specific. We have a lot of projects going, so if anybody's got any questions, complaints, or especially compliments, I'll take those.
Okay, yeah. If you figure out how to do a project without inconveniencing people, would you let us know?
I will, because that would be a miracle.
Yeah, I know it. I just, it does. Let's see. Freight Chair Karen Page, is she on here?
I am. Thank you, Chair. And I just want to say that I think the inconvenience is the price we humans get to pay for improvements in our transportation infrastructure. So.
For sure.
Right. So just a quick update on the freight committee. We did meet on at the end of May or mid-May. Got an update from Trans Systems on the study that they're conducting to will be a major contributor to the freight plan. And a reminder to everyone that the freight committee's objective is to really look at the needs and future of the movement of goods as opposed to the movement of people. Easy way for us to remember this is that if we can't move it in, we can't make it, and if we can't move it out, we cannot sell it. So this is an integral part of economic development for our region. Since I last spoke, I pleaded with you to provide us recommendations for freight committee members, and thank you to those of you who volunteered someone or made some recommendations. We've been able to add 3 committee members, one from the private sector from a corporation, one retired freight professional, and one from a consulting company. So we have a nice variety just in those 3. Still hoping that if you think of someone who could really contribute to the importance of freight and how that impacts a company or the community, certainly let me or Chad know. That's all I have for you, Chair. I'll take any questions if you have them. Thank you.
This is Cindy Claycomb. Karen, are you looking for any particular skill now for that? Look, it sounds like you're rounding out that committee pretty well, but are you looking for anything in particular right now for somebody that has a skill or a capability?
Council member, that is a great question. I think at this point, because we're really rebuilding it, any great skills would be absolutely valuable. However, what we're really lacking is company executives or company shipping managers. So we want to get people directly that work in companies today who, have understanding of the value of freight challenges and freight costs to their company, or who solve those kind of problems, who make decisions about contracts, the kind of folks who really have a granular understanding of the impact on their business. That's what we're really looking for. So if you know any folks, either a company owner or you know, a CEO or even a shipping manager, if we can get more people like that on the freight committee, that will really ensure that we have a very well informed freight plan, and that we're really considering the private sector. All right. One more thing I forgot to mention, Chairman, I'm so sorry. The next meeting of the Freight Committee will be July 28th, at which time we'll get another update from Trans Systems. We're moving right along. It seems to be going really well.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Karen. Richard, is he here? I don't believe so. All right. Is there any other business that anybody wants to bring up? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.